In a quiet neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio, the air was starting to feel like fall. It was early September, and the leaves on the maple trees lining the streets were beginning to turn shades of red and orange. In a small two-story house on a corner lived Carol Wilson and her son, Tyler. Carol had worked at a local accounting firm called Adams Accounting for over 10 years. She was dependable and well-liked at work. Her light brown hair was always neatly styled in a bob, and she dressed professionally every day. Carol was organized and carefully balanced her work life and responsibilities at home. She followed a strict schedule to make sure everything stayed on track. "Mom, I'll be late today. Just heat up a frozen pizza for me," Tyler called from the hallway. Tyler, her 16-year-old son, was tall and athletic. He had the same light brown hair as Carol and bright blue eyes that he got from his father, Michael. Tyler played on his high school's soccer team and often hung out with friends after practice. "What time will you be back?" Carol asked, turning to face him. "You need to be home by 10. I know, he said, brushing her off with a wave of his hand. Carol and Michael had been divorced for 5 years. Michael used to work as a construction site supervisor. At first, he supported the family, but over time, he came home late more and more, claiming he had to meet work contacts. Eventually, he started drinking heavily. The fights between Carol and Michael became worse, and the final straw came when Michael forgot Tyler's 11th birthday completely. That was the day Carol decided it was time to end the marriage. After the divorce, Michael moved to the West Coast and stayed in touch with Tyler only occasionally. He called a few times a year and sent child support payments on time, but he was no longer a real part of Tyler's life. Carol's parents, Diane and Harold Johnson, lived in a wealthy suburb nearby. Harold had retired from his job as an executive at a real estate company and had made a lot of money. Diane was a well-known figure in social circles and had spent her life as an upper-class housewife. Every time they met, Diane would say, "Carol, if you just tried a little harder, you could have a much better life." To Carol, it always sounded like criticism. Carol had a younger sister named Linda. Linda had studied fashion design and now worked at a fancy boutique in Cincinnati. She was single and drove a white BMW. A gift from their parents for Christmas. People often admired her for her lifestyle. "Linda's going to Paris again. It's a birthday present from your father," Diane would brag, her voice full of pride. She always made Linda sound special and important, while giving Carol a cold, dismissive look. Since childhood, Carol had known her parents favored Linda. They gave in to Linda's every wish and spoiled her endlessly. Carol, being the older daughter, was told to be patient and responsible. Even when Carol got straight A's in school, her parents didn't celebrate, but when Linda got B's, it was like she had won a prize. Sometimes, Linda would call and say things like, "I'm going to the beach with Mom and Dad this weekend. Should I take Tyler?" Her tone always made it sound like she was doing Carol a favor. Linda had grown up believing the world revolved around her. Living in this family taught Carol to stand on her own. She had gone to college on a scholarship and started working at an accounting firm as soon as she graduated. She married Michael, gave birth to Tyler, and later raised him alone after the divorce. All of this made her strong and independent. "Tyler, you're my pride and joy," Carol often told her son. Tyler appreciated everything his mother did. He studied hard, played sports, and dreamed of becoming a doctor. For Carol, Tyler was her world. She kept in touch with her parents and sister, but only out of obligation. Emotionally, she had long distanced herself from them. Sometimes she wondered why her family treated her the way they did, but every time she saw Tyler's smile, she felt strong again. One Tuesday evening, Carol was preparing dinner but started to feel uneasy. Tyler hadn't come home yet, even though he should have been back by now. She glanced out the window repeatedly. Maybe soccer practice went late, she said to herself. She picked up her phone and tried calling Tyler. It rang, but he didn't answer. 10 minutes later, her phone rang. The number on the screen was unfamiliar. "Hello, this is Carol Wilson," she said. "This is Jones from Mercy General Hospital's emergency department," a calm voice replied. "Your son has been in a traffic accident. Could you come to the hospital right away?" Carol's heart dropped. Her hands shook. What happened? Is he okay?" she asked in a choked voice. "We'll explain everything when you arrive. Please come as soon as possible." Carol turned off the stove, grabbed her car keys, and rushed out without even putting on a coat. A cold rain had begun to fall. The dashboard clock read 8:15 p.m. The drive normally took 20 minutes. but tonight it felt like forever. "Tyler, hang on, Mama's coming," she whispered as she drove. At the hospital, she ran through the rain and gave her son's name at the emergency desk. A nurse quickly guided her to a waiting doctor. The doctor looked serious, and Carol's stomach twisted with fear. "Your son was hit by a car while walking with a friend," he said gently. "He took a hard blow to the head and is in a coma. There's internal bleeding, and the pressure in his brain is very high." The words felt distant and unreal. Carol's vision blurred, and she felt like she might faint. "Please sit down," the doctor said, holding her arm. "We're preparing for emergency surgery to stop the bleeding and reduce the pressure." "Is he going to live?" Carol asked, her lips trembling. "We'll do everything we can, but we can't promise anything yet." Carol waited outside the operating room for 4 long hours, her face buried in her hands as tears streamed down. Memories of Tyler, his birth, his first steps, his smile that very morning, flashed through her mind. At 1 a.m., the doctor returned. "The surgery was successful," he said. "We stopped the bleeding and reduced the pressure, but he's still in a coma. The next 48 hours will be critical." When Carol saw Tyler in the ICU, her heart broke. His face was bandaged, tubes connected to machines, and he looked so fragile. She gently held his hand and whispered, "Mama's here, please wake up, my sweet boy." The next morning, after resting briefly on a hospital cot, Carol called her boss and took emergency leave. Her boss, Margaret, was kind and understanding. In the afternoon, a nurse asked, "Have you called your family?" Carol realized she hadn't, her hands still shaking. She called her mother. "Carol, this is unexpected. What's wrong?" Diane answered. "Tyler was in a car accident. He's in a coma." I'm at the hospital," Carol said, trying not to cry. "I need help." There was a pause. Then Diane said, "That's awful, but he's young. He'll bounce back, right?" Carol was shocked. "No, he might not. He has brain damage." "Well," Diane said with a sigh, "we're going to Hawaii with Linda next week. We can't cancel now or we'll lose the money." "You're still going on vacation while my son is fighting for his life?" Carol asked, horrified. "You'll manage. You always have," Diane replied. "We'll check on him when we get back. I'll tell Linda too." Carol quietly hung up. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She returned to Tyler's room and stood at the window. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still gray. 3 days passed. Tyler's condition stayed the same. Carol barely slept or ate. Her co-workers, Jennifer and Mark, came to visit. They brought food, clothes, and offered to sit with Tyler so Carol could get some rest. "Carol, you need to rest, or you'll get sick too," Jennifer said gently. Carol was deeply thankful for her friends. Meanwhile, her parents never called. On the 4th morning, Carol opened her social media and quietly blocked her parents and Linda. She deleted them from her contacts. "I don't need them anymore," she whispered to herself. That afternoon, a nurse came in. "Miss Wilson, there's a phone call for you." Carol hesitated but picked up the hospital phone. "Carol, we're back from Hawaii. It was wonderful," her mother said cheerfully, as if nothing had happened. "So, how's Tyler?" Carol stayed silent. "You didn't need to block us on social media. That was childish. We're still family." Still, Carol said nothing. "Did Tyler die?" Diane asked coldly. "If there's life insurance, could you share some? Linda is trying to buy a condo." Carol's hands shook. Tears filled her eyes. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Carol, are you there?" Without a word, Carol hung up the phone. She sat on a bench in the hallway, holding herself tightly. Nurse Judy came and sat beside her. "Are you okay?" Judy asked. Carol looked up. Her eyes were tired, but filled with something new, strength. "I'm fine. I've had enough," she said quietly, and walked back to Tyler's room. The sun was shining through the window, lighting up Tyler's pale face. Carol sat beside him, holding his hand and reading work emails. A week had passed. Tyler was still in a coma, but his vital signs were stable. "Good morning, Miss Wilson," said Nurse Becky with a warm smile. She was in her 40s and known for her kindness. "There's a little improvement in his brain activity." Carol gave a weak smile. "Thank you, Becky. Have you eaten?" Carol shook her head. "You're eating lunch with me at 1. No excuses," Becky said kindly. "Just after noon. Dar, Ramsey, Tyler's neurosurgeon, stopped by. Miss Wilson, can we talk? In the hallway, he shared hopeful news. The swelling in Tyler's brain is going down. That's good. Will he wake up? Carol asked. We're hopeful, but it's still uncertain, he explained. Talking to him might help. Even in a coma, hearing familiar voices can stimulate the brain. Back in the room, Carol took Tyler's hand and began to talk. She told him stories, his childhood, school memories, fun times they had shared. Sometimes she cried, sometimes she smiled. That afternoon, as she talked about his Wednesday soccer practice, Carol was sitting quietly by Tyler's hospital bed. She had been there every day since his accident. Suddenly, she noticed something. Tyler's fingers twitched just a little bit. Tyler, she whispered, holding her breath. She watched closely. Move your fingers again, please. But nothing else happened. Her heart raced. Quickly, she pressed the nurse call button. Moments later, Becky, the nurse, rushed in. His fingers moved, just a tiny bit, but I saw it for sure, Carol said, her voice shaking with hope. Becky carefully checked Tyler's hand and tested his reflexes. It might be just a reflex, she said gently, but it's a good sign. I will tell Ramsey. That night, on Becky's advice, Carol stayed at the hospital. She borrowed the small shower room nearby and slept there. Before leaving, she promised Tyler, I'll be back first thing in the morning. The next day, when Carol came back, she found the doctors and nurses gathered in Tyler's room. Ramsey saw her and explained, we are seeing changes in Tyler's brain activity. It suggests he is becoming more aware. We need to keep watching carefully, but this is good news. Tears filled Carol's eyes. Thank you, she whispered. From then on, talking to Tyler became Carol's daily habit. She spent many hours by his side. She read his favorite books aloud and told him about his friends at school. Sometimes, a few of Tyler's friends came to visit. They spoke softly, hoping to bring him comfort. 2 weeks after the accident, on a Monday morning, Carol's phone rang. It showed the name Linda. Carol paused before answering. Hi Carol, it's been a while, Linda said cheerfully. I'm worried about Tyler, Carol replied coldly. Linda sounded a little nervous. I heard from Mom that you hung up on her. She was only trying to help. Carol gave a bitter laugh. Help? Talking about insurance money is what she calls help? Linda chose her words carefully. Mom and Dad asked me to call. They care about Tyler, too. Really? Carol's voice was sharp with sarcasm. And I suppose they want to know about the insurance money. Anger burned inside Carol. Tyler is alive. This isn't the time for money talks. Of course, I didn't mean it that way, Linda hurried to explain. It's just that you're alone and this is hard. Maybe financial help would make things easier. Help? Carol's voice shook. My son is fighting for his life, and all you care about is money. That's not what I meant. Enough, Carol said firmly. Don't call me again. I don't want anything to do with you or our parents. After hanging up, Carol let out a deep breath. She felt angry and sad, but also strangely free. She knew now she couldn't count on them. Back in Tyler's room, she found Elena Sanchez, the hospital's social worker, waiting for her. Elena often came by to listen and offer support. You look pale, Elena said kindly. What happened? Carol told her about the call from Linda. Elena listened quietly and took notes. Ms. Wilson, if I may, Elena said seriously, you should keep records of all communications with your family. Emails, texts, phone calls, if possible, recordings too. Why? You might need legal protection later, Elena explained, especially for Tyler's care or his money. Your family's behavior shows they're mostly interested in finances. This could become a guardianship problem. Carol nodded slowly. Is recording legal here in Ohio? Yes, Elena said, as long as you are aware you're recording, it's allowed. A simple recording app on your phone is enough. That evening, Carol followed Elena's advice. She downloaded a recording app on her phone. She never thought she would do this, but she knew it was necessary to protect Tyler. The next day, the hospital's accounting department sent insurance papers. Carol read through them carefully and filled in the forms. Most of Tyler's treatment after the accident would likely be covered, but more applications might be needed for long-term care. Any problem? Nancy from accounting asked kindly. No, everything is fine, Carol said with a small smile. It's just that my family has strange ideas about the insurance money. Nancy gave a sympathetic nod. That happens a lot. If you need help, just ask me. At the end of the week, Tyler's doctors met again to review his condition. They saw more improvements in his brain activity and reflexes. They were cautiously hopeful. Tyler is showing clear signs of recovery, Ramsey said. The road to full health will be long, but we are hopeful. Carol thanked the doctors deeply. A small spark of hope warmed her heart. Tyler would come back to her, and she would do everything to protect him. That evening, rain began to fall outside the hospital windows, but Carol felt calm inside. She leaned close to Tyler's bed and spoke softly. It won't be long now, Tyler. The day you come back home is coming soon. Mama will always be here waiting. She gently squeezed his hand. Mom, a faint voice broke the quiet room. Carol looked up from her magazine. Tyler's eyes were half open, looking at her. Tyler, she cried, rushing to his side. Can you hear me? It's Mom. Tyler's lips moved slightly. Mom, where? Carol quickly pressed the nurse call button while holding his hand tightly. In minutes, nurses and doctors rushed in. Becky was first and called for the doctor. Tyler, you're in the hospital, Carol said, voice trembling. You had an accident, but it's okay, you're back. Ramsey checked Tyler's pupils and asked simple questions. What's your name? Tyler Wilson, came the weak reply. What grade are you in? Tyler thought a moment. High school, sophomore. Ramsey smiled. His mind is clear. Basic thinking and memory are working. After the checkup, Carol stayed alone with Tyler. He was still weak and could not talk much, but his eyes showed he knew her. How long? He asked quietly. 3 weeks, Carol said softly. You've been asleep. Tyler nodded slowly. Were you scared? Tears came to Carol's eyes. Yes, very scared, but you were so strong. That afternoon, Tyler stayed awake longer. He was confused but recognized Carol and the nurses. The rehab team checked him and planned light therapy starting the next day. This is a miracle, said Michael Chin, the physical therapist. His young age and fitness are helping. The road is long, but he will get better. Carol was full of joy. She called work and friends to share the news. They sent their love and good wishes. The next morning, while helping Tyler eat breakfast, the hospital door opened. Carol turned and saw her parents and Linda standing there. Carol, we heard Tyler woke up, her mother Diane said kindly. We came right away. Carol was stunned, her heart filled with anger and distrust, but she stayed calm for Tyler's sake. Tyler, do you remember? This is Grandma, Grandpa, and Aunt Linda, she said softly. Tyler looked at them with confusion. Oh, yes. Diane smiled sweetly and moved closer. Tyler, you've been through so much. Grandma and Grandpa were very worried. Harold, the grandfather, patted Tyler's shoulder. You're a strong boy. That's the Wilson blood. Linda took out a small box from her designer bag. A get-well gift, a nice watch, perfect for a high school boy. Carol felt uneasy about their sudden kindness after 3 weeks of silence, and the expensive gifts. She tapped her phone's recording app and slipped it into her pocket. Carol, could we talk in the hallway for a minute? Diane asked.